Hello and welcome to my channel. Today, I'm sharing a thought-provoking story that explores the complexities of human nature and the power of truth. Get comfortable, and let's dive into the intriguing tale of Emma Richardson and the secrets she uncovers in the quiet town of Millbrook. In the quiet town of Millbrook, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, life flowed with a comforting predictability. Residents went about their daily routines, exchanging pleasantries, sharing gossip, and taking solace in the town's tranquil, almost idyllic atmosphere. Emma Richardson, a seasoned journalist for the Millbrook Gazette had chronicled every significant event and minor intrigue for years. Her keen eye for detail and relentless curiosity made her a trusted figure in the community. But Emma's world, which seemed so well charted, was about to be upended in ways she never imagined. One crisp autumn morning, as the first light filtered through the golden leaves, Emma decided to visit the town library. The library was a place of solace for her, a sanctuary where she could lose herself in the stories of others. She often sought inspiration there, amidst the dust-covered tomes and the lingering scent of aged paper. Today was no different. She wandered through the aisles, letting her fingers trail along the spines of forgotten books, when something caught her eye. An old, leather-bound volume, noticeably out of place, stood slightly ajar on a low shelf. Emma knelt and pulled the book free. As she did, a small piece of paper fluttered to the floor. Curiosity piqued, she picked it up. The paper was yellowed and fragile, its edges crumbling. Written in an elegant but hurried script were the words, "I know what happened that night." A shiver ran down her spine. The message was vague, yet it resonated with a haunting familiarity. Emma's mind raced back to a night years ago, a night she had tried to bury deep within her memories. It was the night when a local boy, Daniel, had died under mysterious circumstances, an event that had cast a long shadow over Millbrook. The case was ruled as an accidental drowning, but whispers of foul play had never truly faded. Emma had been there, at the scene, as a teenager. The night had haunted her ever since, a ghost she had never quite exorcised. With trembling hands, Emma slipped a note into her pocket and checked out the book, a thin pretense for her sudden departure. Her heart pounded as she hurried back to her small, cozy home on Elm Street. She needed to think, to process this unexpected message. Who had left it? And how could they know about that night? Days passed, and Emma couldn't shake the note from her mind. It lingered at the edges of her consciousness, disrupting her focus and tainting her thoughts. Determined to uncover the truth, she began to retrace her steps. She visited the library frequently, scanning the aisles and observing the patrons with a heightened sense of scrutiny. But there were no more notes, no clues to follow. Just when she was beginning to lose hope, another message appeared. This time, it was at her favorite coffee shop. Emma found it tucked beneath her usual table, secured with a small piece of tape. "It's time to remember," it read. The words felt like a challenge, a beckoning from the past. Emma's resolve hardened. She would find out who was behind this, and why they were dredging up old wounds. Emma decided to talk to the people who had been closest to the incident. She started with Sarah, a childhood friend who had been with her that night. Sarah still lived in Millbrook, running a small boutique in the town center. When Emma visited, she found Sarah sorting through a new shipment of clothes. They exchanged pleasantries, but Emma quickly steered the conversation toward the past. "Do you remember that night by the lake?" Emma asked, trying to keep her voice casual. Sarah's face paled slightly, and she nodded. "How could I forget? It was awful. What happened to Daniel? Why do you bring it up now?" Emma hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. "I've been getting these notes," she said finally. "They seem to be about that night. Someone knows something, and they're trying to get me to remember. Sarah's eyes widened with a mix of fear and curiosity. I haven't thought about that in years. What do the notes say? Emma showed her the messages. Sarah studied them carefully, then shook her head. I don't know, Emma. It's creepy, but maybe it's someone who wants closure. Maybe it's someone who knows more than we do. The conversation left Emma with more questions than answers. Over the next few weeks, she found more notes. They appeared in places significant to her. On a bench in the park where she used to meet friends. In her mailbox. Even inside her home. Each note was more unsettling than the last, pushing her to delve deeper into her memories of that night. The turning point came when Emma discovered a note in her mailbox that read, "You're not alone." It was a jarring reminder that this mystery was not just about her. Determined to see the bigger picture, Emma began to reach out to others in the community. She discovered that several townspeople had received similar messages, each note hinting at their own hidden pasts. It seemed that whoever was sending these notes knew more about Millbrook's secrets than anyone could have imagined. Emma's investigation led her to confront old acquaintances and re-examine the events surrounding Daniel's death. She spoke with Daniel's family, who had never quite recovered from the loss. His brother, Mark, was particularly affected. He had always believed that there was more to Daniel's death than met the eye. Mark's bitterness and desire for justice had only grown over the years, festering in the quiet corners of his life. Mark shared his theories with Emma, recounting how he had tried to gather information but had always hit dead ends. He was certain that the truth was out there, but he needed Emma's help to find it. As they talked, Emma felt a sense of camaraderie with Mark, a shared purpose that drove them both. The clues began to coalesce, forming a disturbing picture. Emma realized that the messages were not just about Daniel's death. They were about the town's collective guilt. Each person who received a note had a connection to the tragedy, or role they had played, however unwittingly. Emma herself had been there that night, had seen something she couldn't quite remember. One evening, as Emma sifted through her notes, she received a call from an old friend, Jack. He had been part of their group that night and had moved away shortly after the incident. Jack's voice was tense, almost frantic. He had received a note too, and it had dredged up memories he had tried to forget. "We need to talk," he said. "There's something you need to know." They met at a secluded spot near the lake, the scene of Daniel's death. The air was thick with tension as Jack revealed what he remembered. He spoke of a fight, a confrontation that had escalated out of control. Daniel had been angry, accusing someone of betrayal. There were raised voices, a struggle, and then silence. Jack's memory was foggy, distorted by time and guilt, but it was enough to trigger Emma's own recollections. Suddenly, the pieces clicked into place. Emma remembered the fight, the way Daniel had stumbled, the flash of panic in her best friend's eyes. Her heart sank as she realized who had been behind the messages. It was her best friend, Megan, who had orchestrated this entire ordeal. Megan had been there that night, had been part of the argument. She had harbored a deep sense of guilt and responsibility for Daniel's death, a burden she had carried in silence for years. Emma confronted Megan the next day. They met at Megan's house, a quaint cottage on the edge of town. Megan's face was drawn, her eyes red from lack of sleep. She seemed to know why Emma was there. "Why did you do it?" Emma asked, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and sorrow. "Why did you send the notes?" Megan sighed, her shoulders slumping as if a great weight had finally been lifted. "I couldn't keep it inside anymore," she said quietly. "I had to make you all remember. I had to make you see what really happened that night. It wasn't just an accident. Daniel didn't just drown. We were all there, and we all played a part. Tears streamed down Megan's face as she recounted the events of that night. She spoke of the argument, how Daniel had accused her of betrayal, how she had pushed him in a moment of anger. He had slipped, hit his head, and fallen into the lake. Panic had set in, and instead of helping, they had all fled, leaving Daniel to his fate. It was a terrible, tragic mistake, and they had covered it up out of fear. Emma listened in stunned silence, the weight of Megan's confession settling over her like a heavy shroud. The truth was painful, but it brought a sense of clarity. The messages had been Megan's way of seeking redemption, of forcing them all to confront their shared guilt and find a way to move forward. In the days that followed, Emma wrote the story that would shake Millbrook to its core. She recounted the tragedy of Daniel's death, the collective guilt of those who had been there, and the desperate search for truth and redemption. It was a story that exposed the hidden darkness beneath the town's peaceful exterior, but it was also a story of healing and forgiveness. The town was in an uproar as the story broke. Some were angry, others were heartbroken, but many found a sense of closure. For years, they had lived under the shadow of that night, and now the truth was finally out. It was a painful reckoning, but it was also a chance to start anew. Emma's article sparked a wave of reactions, from outrage to relief. The townspeople gathered in small groups, discussing the revelations and sharing their own experiences. It was a difficult but necessary process, a collective reckoning with the past. As the dust settled, Emma realized that her world had changed forever. She had uncovered a dark secret, but in doing so, she had also found a sense of purpose. She continued to write for the Millbrook Gazette, but now her stories carried a new depth, a new understanding of the human condition. The messages had stopped, but their impact lingered. Emma knew that she would never forget the lessons she had learned, that the truth, no matter how painful, was essential to healing, and that sometimes the past needed to be uncovered to bring peace to the present. In the end, Emma's journey had taught her that even in the darkest corners of human experience, there was always hope for redemption and forgiveness. And as she looked out at the town she had grown to love, she knew that Millbrook would never be the same again, and that was a good thing. That's the end of today's story, folks. I hope you found it as captivating as I did. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.